celebration to all Americans as we honor Amendment 19 on its 100th year since ratification, giving women the ability to vote in the right candidates to create a more balanced society.
It's sort of like this question of like the promise of this country.
Metaphorically, I could say it's like a primer. It was painted down and now there's all these other things that can be added on top.
Women have built a community for each other and will always continue to fight for each other.
It means I get to have a voice in our political system, and I believe that the power of women has the ability to change the world.
Democracy is a privilege, gained with blood, sweat, and tears. Believe me, I know that because I am from a country that doesn't have it, Venezuela.
This is why it's important that we vote, and it's important that we keep these bills from passing into law because they threaten our bodies, our autonomy, and our choice.
It means using my voice to vote for those in the political world that have the ability to make positive change. And it means being an ally, regardless if issues directly impact me or not. Everyone deserves the same rights.
It is a time to reckon with the immense amount of labor and really everything that was put at risk for generations that came before me to have access to voting, and also to reflect on what that access looks like today and how so many Black, Indigenous, and Brown people are still being targeted when it comes to voting.
The 19th Amendment represents to me a step in the right direction that began with unity and integrity, but didn't fully actualize.
It's critical that we earned our right to vote so that women can have a say in what affects us.
Movements can achieve major victories and still leave a lot of people out, especially Black women.
As a woman of color, it is difficult to celebrate a milestone that was deeply flawed and only benefited a select few, while other marginalized communities were forced to continue fighting against the many systems of oppression. Women of color experienced a long, hard battle to achieve their right to vote and continue to march at the front lines of the resistance, fighting against racism and patriarchy daily.
So that's why it was really important for me to sort of represent how urgent it is to make sure that our voices are heard.
Just because there is a law that legalizes women's ability to vote, it doesn't mean that any of those rights and voices and empowerment is actually reflected in the communities.
I don't know, it seems like another indication we need to burn this thing all down and build something that works for all of us.
We still have a lot of work to do.
When we look at the women's suffrage movement, it's really important to think about the voices that were very intentionally excluded from that movement and see it as an opportunity for us to do better in the future.
Part of it is giving immigrant communities and people of color the power to vote and mobilizing them to vote, but I think the other part is how do we create a system and create a society that values their voices from the beginning, because I think at the end of the day, just being able to vote, it doesn't necessarily mean that our voices are being represented.
The 19th Amendment to me marks an important goal achieved for women by women, and it's not to be lost. And the fight of these women should serve us as an inspiration to do more work and to fight for more equality and against voter suppression and equal representation.
When we're talking about different communities, we don't just think that we've arrived and that we've, created something that is a solution for everyone, but to always be asking, who isn't at the table? Who aren't we thinking about? And to seek that, not just celebrate what we do have, but to always seek out who may need more or who may need something different.
The 19th Amendment represents both civil liberties and white feminism to me. On one hand, I recognize the hard work of the suffragette movement, but on the other hand, I see just how many years it took for Black people and women of color to get the exact same rights.
While we may have finally won the right to vote, people of color continue to be robbed of several basic human rights and continue to be brutalized at the hands of the government. Systemic racism is being exposed and confronted now more than ever as we grapple with police brutality and the recent murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor.
So how do we create like a new world where the next generation of youth know that their voices are valued from the day that they are born?
Given the state of the world right now, there's more work to be done. Our democracy is being challenged in ways that we've never seen before. It is scary. It's scary times.
We still have a lot of work to do.
I mean, our history, colonialism, and patriarchy, that's still very present now. Is seen not just like, in our everyday interactions, but in actually how systems are working and how our systems are being directed. And that needs to change. We deserve more. We deserve something better.
We must continue fighting together as allies for justice and equality, for none of us is free until we are all free.
Be more aware, involved, vocal, and not letting up, because this ain't it.
Moving forward, it reminds me that our movements must be intersectional and, as Audre Lorde said, not single issue, because we do not live single issue lives. And as Frances Harper said, we are all bound up together in this struggle.
I will always continue to fight as well, and that I am always going to be passionate about rising up for everybody.
It's not just about being able to vote, but it's about being able to have a voice, and I think they're not the same thing, and ultimately being able to have a voice is the goal of having a future.
This fight isn't over. I will be reflecting on the 19th Amendment and really looking at the ways that white feminism has been complicit in accessing the right to vote for themselves, and that means at the cost of Black, Indigenous, and Brown people.
Like, what are you getting from being here, and like, what does it mean to be from here, and like, what this place is even about?
In the end, it's really about continuing to fight for others who may not have the option to fight for each other.
Now more than ever, it's important to fight for our voting rights and to also uplift people of marginalized communities so that they can have the exact same rights that everyone else does.
That is why I will use my vote to shape a future.
Women fought hard for this victory, and we have to honor that by getting out to vote.